Welcome. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order this evening at 6:05 PM. Is the BOS going to be called to order, or are you just going to wait for Dawn?
We're gonna call it to order.
We can call it to order at 6:05 PM.
Okay. We have, I'll say a fairly brief, but what could be longer agenda tonight, depending on how everything goes. We're going to start with some conversation with the superintendent of the Quabbin Regional School District. So we'd like to welcome Colleen Mucha here. And she has a couple of things to talk to us about. First would be the Oakham Center School repairs, I think, just to get that out of the way so you can tell us where that stands. And then we would like to have you talk a little bit about the education budget. And I know I have a few thoughts I'd like to share. I think you'll find the Finance Committee has been a strong supporter of the school over the years. Dr. Mucha was well thought of by, I think, our committee. And we're trying to find a way to support the school budget, but I'd like to maybe just deal with the center school repairs first, if you could.
Sure, Kevin can address those. So we've had a couple issues come up and they're not. So what we're really trying to do is be communicative with your team around if something comes up and it's an emergency, we can't open school, we'll take care of it, we'll fix it. We might have to communicate with you after. However, if we have things that are in need of repair, we want to be able to provide you with a heads up and say, how do you want to move forward? Get a sense from our building and grounds director about what timeframes are for different things to happen so that you can kind of plan and think about those.
Okay.
So I think the most recent one, do you have pictures here or? No, that's okay.
I think you sent us pictures, or if you
I
haven't
did.
did, somebody did.
Okay, yeah. So the most recent one I sent you was the hot water heater.
Yes.
in Oakham.
So the hot water tank, we had sent it over a few months ago. It is starting to show more signs of leakage coming from both sides of it. Hasn't failed yet, but it's starting to show the signs of it. The hot water tank itself is over 20 years old. It's a 119 gallon hot water tank that actually provides the hot water for the kitchen and all the classrooms and bathrooms. So we've certainly got the useful life out of it. But it is starting to show a little bit more signs of wear.
And that's something, Kevin, from what I know, it's probably not something you would repair as old as it is, so you replace it. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we had our plumber that we typically use come out, look at it, assess it, and provide a quote as to what it would cost to replace it. The cost just for the tank alone is $12,000, and then it would be the labor.
Did he give you a labor estimate?
I figured no.
Who is the plumber?
EDC, I think we had sent over the quote before, but I have a copy here if you'd like it.
Shouldn't speak. Thank you. Well, is this something you have to take out to bid, or can you select your contractor because it's a routine replacement?
We
Under-
actually, this would be over the 5,000 threshold.
That's right.
Beyond the town, but because it's over the 12,000, we'll have to get 3 bidders.
That's okay. So this is just the one. Okay. Questions, Corey? I mean, you've been interested in the past on kind of how this works since you joined the Finance Committee.
No, it's
With the
always
school.
the question is just to protect the town's finances and funds. And if he's getting 3 quotes, I think we're doing that.
And this,
You can also choose to get the quotes yourself because you'll be responsible for the repair. But we view this as a partnership, right? So we just want to make sure that anytime we're going out to quotes, we know exactly the specs that we're looking for. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
But it is some things, the town can procure, write the procurement for and go out to bid for, so.
do you have a feeling on timeline, Kevin? Is this something that's going to happen in the next, the point is that, is this something we should expect to see in the next few months, or is this something that may be replaced in the very short term? I'm just trying to get an idea when you think we may see.
The failure or
The failure, yeah, it would have to be replaced.
Fortunately, no, because they leak from the inside out, but It's showing a little bit more signs of water on the outside, but it's not pouring out or anything like that.
So is there a recommendation as to when it be replaced?
Unfortunately, it could quit tomorrow. I really can't tell you, so I would start planning for it.
Okay, so
The one
so you guys
downstairs
need-
leaks.
Yeah.
I
I had one in my house at one point, so.
And it may last several months. You don't know.
I think, Lucy, it's probably something we need to discuss beyond this meeting and
We'll have
someone
to.
needs to go take a look at it and decide. I mean, between now and the end of the fiscal year. The only place on the top of my head I come over that you could pay for it would be out of the reserve fund.
Right.
And we've already used how much from that?
Not that much. I want to say there's 20-some thousand sitting there still. And we replenish it at the annual town meeting in June or July 1st. Okay,
So it sounds to me, I just want to make sure we're clear, you would like to go look at it
I would
or?
think at least, I know Steve had mentioned before that he wished he had gone to see was it the generator? And he didn't know when anyone visited. So I think at least the member that's not here may have an interest.
To schedule a time to,
Maybe coordinate it with the Board of Selectmen if you guys would go look at it, or you may have already looked at it, Aaron, I don't
No,
know.
I think we should just have two other, I mean, the one that services the towns should go look at it, and I don't know that I have any expertise on.
Yeah, I don't certainly.
I think having the professionals look at it is all that I would need.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
I have nothing else on the school deal.
I do not.
Having any upcoming projects that you're looking at that you might want to just have them figure out?
The only other thing that was out there was the exterior wall on the side of the gym and stuff in the back that I hope you looked at.
We have looked at that,
Yeah.
yes. We have talked about it,
Yes.
but it kind of got pushed back a little bit until we had a full board again. And now we're thinking about it again, but we haven't made any decisions on, I mean, there are several items that need to be looked at, need to be repaired, so we have to put them in order of priority, but if you feel that one should be top priority, then we can start with that.
I would say on your current repairs right now, probably your hot water tank is first, because if that hot water
Definitely.
tank goes, we can't have school because I don't
Right.
have hot water. But after that, I would probably start looking at that wall. Our only
Okay.
concern is because the outside of the ephes is actually damaged. It's allowing the water to get infiltration
Right.
in there. Eventually, we're gonna start to see more stuff like that.
We had talked about ARPA for, I thought, that project.
Well, for part of it, if we had enough money left in ARPA to handle it, that we're going to have to check on. We've got so many things coming out of ARPA now. We will have to see and then kind of make a budget around it somehow. But we'll do that and we'll put that on a list of priorities and we'll discuss it at a selectmen meeting that we've got to start looking at that wall.
Sure, and if anybody would like to come down and take a look again, I'm happy to meet them and show them what's going on.
I don't think it's changed too much since we were down there though.
Not too much. I mean, it still kind of looks the same, you know, obviously a little bit more of a ripple, but that's about it. It's just gonna keep eventually going like that.
I think we were going to invite you to come down and look at it again with us as to how do we provide for fixing such a huge project like that? Who do we apply to? Where do we get our quotes from?
So we actually did have a local contractor come down and look at it and provide what his opinion is and what his scope of work would be.
Mhm.
Not telling you necessarily that's the best scope of work, but I do think it probably would work.
Okay,
So I can also send over the quote that we have received for that as well.
that would be great. That would really help us out a lot.
It was a local contractor from Hardwick, actually.
Okay,
But yes, I'd be happy to send that over.
well, that'll give us a starting point,
Absolutely.
which would be most helpful to us. Appreciate that.
Oh.
Good, thank you.
In a lighthearted manner, I am just curious, why can't the kids have school if there's no hot water?
It's against the. You can't.
There's a
you don't-
safety issue
Health
Aaron,
issue.
with that?
You gotta.
Kitchen
Can
work
washing,
can't work
Kids can't-
very well without hot water. They do need it.
Just thinking for the old timers who walked uphill in the snow both ways to school. Thank you.
Oakham is pretty loose, but
So. Does anyone have anything else on that? I mean, up here. Hey, Don.
Good evening.
if I may.
Yes, Paul.
Paul Rochette from Gaffney Road.
Are you gonna squeeze in?
For years, I was working for buildings and grounds on the State Police Academy.
Right.
Hot water heaters. You really can't see anything because they have a steel shroud basically and a lot of insulation. So if they're telling you they're seeing seepage, it's probably a lot worse than what it appears on the outside right now. And they never go at a good time. They could go on the weekend or whatever. It's not something that you really can plan on putting off in the distance. It's really something that probably should be addressed.
So you're saying sooner versus later?
I would say for all parties involved, the least expensive way is to tackle it now and not to wait.
Yeah, and that's certainly the Board of Selectmen has to work through that, and the Finance Committee will be here to, if the reserve fund is required. Timing is good, maybe there could be an article for it, well, you'd have to fund it either way, so I guess you'd have to budget for it, never mind. I'm talking to myself.
Do you have a water alarm on it? If it should happen to break tomorrow?
Because it's in a boiler room, a concrete floor with drains.
Okay.
So
If there's nothing else left on that topic, I would say we move on to the budget for the school.
Yes,
I have
another
a,
quick thing, just to.
Oh, I'm
put on
sorry,
the
yes.
radar in the future would
Yes.
be the paving. in the
that's
parking lot.
come up, I believe, before also.
We had done a few patches last year in certain areas where the slopes were too grade. The grade on the slopes was too bad, going back down towards the building where there was handicap entrances and that kind of stuff. And there was 3 other areas where it was all too broken up, so we cut those out and paid those in ourselves. I think it ended up costing us somewhere around the $7,800 mark or whatever, but we really needed to get them done at the end of last year. But there's several of the sections, including the basketball court itself, that are really starting to get detrimental. Just something to keep in mind.
we were going to try, and I know it's been at least another year or so since we've been looking at it and thinking about it. We were hoping to leave the paving as the last part of all the repairs that we had looked at with you. Get the wall done and the entry part to the building. That was going to be I think our second item in priority. Once those are done, then the paving makes a little more sense, but if it's really falling apart that fast,
I agree with what your assessment is. I would put it in that order. I
okay,
mean, we may have to do some patching in certain areas to get us a few more years type of thing, but it's not at a point where it's gonna completely fail.
okay, okay, good. Because I hate to have a new one there and then start working out there, damaging it, and then have to do it a third time. We don't want to do that if we can get away
We're
from
just
it.
mentioning it to kind of put on your radar,
Right.
thinking, 5 years out type of.
Yeah.
plan.
So
These are
We
the
would
things
do
we're
the
looking
wall
at
first, then we would do the entry and then probably the paving.
Not what I think
first.
first, and then I would go wall and then start looking at paving and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And I'll continue to put together kind of just forethought for you for the next few years as things come up, and we'll give you our recommendation as to how we would prioritize them for you. That's
Mhm.
helpful.
So Alan, who's gonna get the second 2 quotes so the board of selectmen can move forward?
That's discussing the Board of Selectmen, really.
We covered everything we've talked about.
Don, you got anything?
No,
No?
I'm all set.
I think we're good to move on to the budget.
Okay,
If I could make a few comments to start, I want to just update you where the Finance Committee is on the budget development this year. First, I guess I would say the town is probably where you are, what you call your version 1. So we just finished last week, our last joint meeting between the Finance Committee members and Board of Selectmen with various town departments. So you're further along than we are at this point in time. The things I just wanted to share with you, just to give you some things to think on. I won't dig down into the weeds, but when you look at the town's total revenue, we have the outside accounting firm that we use to do the revenue forecast, so it's not biased in any way. I mean, it's pretty direct. It's pretty simple, but it's pretty, it's a good number. Each year, near the end of the budget process, we'll go back to the revenue forecast and look for opportunities. Sometimes the assessor has small adjustments that come through. But right now, we're looking at a revenue of about 4.599 million for the town for the year. So it's an increase of $125,811 in total. If you go back and look at history, I guess I would say is a fair way to think of it. There's typically been in the last few years, somewhere in the range of a 60-40 split between the town and the school, with the school getting the bigger piece. And what's concerning is when you look at the trend, Colleen, of the increase at the school. I mean, I've ran it every way you can think of in the 3-year trend for the town, I'm sorry, for the school, is right around 5% for the last 3 years. And I think that a 3-year trend is better than a 5 or 10-year trend because it's the most recent history. So I give that some credibility. So it's a non-sustainable increase where it's been at the last 2 years in a row now. When we do look at the other school that we have a budget from, which is Pathfinder, we have another increase there. So our total education increase is $167,000 with $125,000 in expected increases in revenue. So we're already going into free cash before we fund a single increase for the town. I opened by saying that we're really in stage 1 of our budget development. We'll go to hopefully stage 2 by the end of tonight. If everything that everyone in the town asked for were approved, that's another $190,000+. So obviously we can't fund all the things that the town people are asking for, or the town departments are asking for. Our free cash is a public number. We have approximately 210,000 sitting in free cash. So if both requests, the current school request and the current town request, were funded in total, we would be dipping into stabilization to pay for what is out there. So I just wanted to start by saying that, we believe in the school. I think you've got a group here in Oakham that supported the school. We supported it last year. I spoke probably longer than I needed to at the town meeting last year about the challenges that the school budget put in front of us, but then we went ahead and it voted for it, and the town gave it pretty much unanimous vote in favor of the budget last year. I don't know what we're going to do yet this year until we have a better handle on the town budget. The town has challenges. We have a number of open positions. Hiring, as I'm sure you found out in your budget and are very familiar with, costs more now than it did a few years ago. It's more challenging to find the quality of people that you would like to have. That often comes down to money and benefits. So there's a pretty big challenge in front of the town right now. And I don't think an opinion, at least on the finance committee, I can't speak for the Board of Selectmen. Don, you may want to make some comments in a second. I don't think we have an opinion yet where we are on the school budget. I just wanted you to be aware that it's a really big bogey that's out there. I mean, that's when the education budget takes up all of the additional revenue plus another $40,000 roughly, it's hard to swallow that.
Yes. I do want to make sure that you are aware we're very sensitive to the state funding and your foundation numbers. And while it was brought up at the annual town meeting last year that, the state funds uniformly, and you could speak to this much better than I could, I think everyone in this room knows that the costs differ between sending a student in Worcester to school versus sending students to school out here in the country. Your transportation costs are different. There's a number of factors that weigh into that. So I personally, I'm not speaking for the FinCom, but I personally don't know that you can apply the exact same numbers for students in Boston as in Cambridge, as in Oakham. And that's what we're here looking out for. So I know you have to work within what the state gives you. And I know Aaron's been very passionate about looking at the rural side of things for us. But I just want to let you know that I do understand what you have to work with on that.
Thanks.
Don, did you have any
I'm
comments from the
just
Board of
gonna
Selectmen?
agree with what you just said.
Okay.
I can't add much to that.
I know you're not here to make a presentation or anything. I have a couple more
I'm
questions.
not, But I do have sort of a synopsis
Okay.
that I'll leave with you. And you don't have to look it over tonight. But maybe I can just sort of, and I just want to thank Aaron,
Mr. Chet.
Paul, for coming to our public hearing meeting. That was awesome. It was great to have people there who could ask questions. And so we have been at this budget 4 times. And our first go round, even with our first go round, we understood the state that we as a district were going to be and that you as towns were going to be faced with. So we didn't ever come in and say, this is our first budget. We said, it's not good enough. We made cuts. Proposal 2 happened the same night that we talked about what a level service budget would be. So I want you to know that we're taking this very seriously. We understand the constraints that towns are under. And also, as you said, we're under much different constraints as well. This is the first time in 10 years that our revenue has been less, $93,000 less than we've ever received before. We have factors that I'm sure you have all heard at town meetings and multiple times, but around our student enrollment declining. And so we're in hold harmless, which actually equals debt. So we don't get Chapter 70 funding like Worcester does, who, you know, has increases of students. We get $30 per student. That's all we get. We're in a very similar place as the town as far as using our reserves. So last year, the way we offset the budget was to take $750,000 out of our E&D. We are looking at doing that again. We did receive some rural school aid, and we really appreciate Aaron kind of stepping up for our communities and serving on that committee. And he's sent me some helpful pieces of information. Rural school money is challenging, and you'll hear that. We don't get it until they notify us the end of October, and it has to be spent by June. Typically, what we would have great desire to do would be to use that to offset our operating budget, right? But the way that it comes in, it makes it really challenging to do that. So this year, what we're doing is we're using $440,000 to sort of offset some salaries that are coming out of school choice. We're going to put those over to rural school aid so that we can save that in school choice and have it expended by June. And we're also tackling some building projects, shared building projects up at the middle high school. We have an air filtration system that we won't have to go to the towns to ask you to help us fund that. We have some flooring projects, different things like that. So that is sort of probably really oversimplified, and I'm going to give you a copy of this. I think the other really important thing to know is that we're really looking for efficiencies, and we are taking a thoughtful approach to how we can be more efficient. And so some of the things that we've done are right from round 1, we had our ESSER funding, which also ends. Now, this is just sort of a little bit of a fun fact, but you know, they gave all the schools ESSER funding and it had to be expended by the end of this year. We had a plan for that. We hired several different positions to support COVID learning loss, health and safety. So we hired additional CNAs, we hired mental health and social workers, we hired technology integration specialists, because we were coming out of COVID and we were moving to a lot more remote learning. So one of the first things we did was we said, well, within those positions, you know, what is something that maybe we no longer need because COVID, you know, is kind of past us. So we removed a CNA and we removed our technology integration specialist. And so we won't move those over to our general budget. So at this point, so I'm not going to bore you with all of this because you'll be able to read this, but at this point, we've cut more than 13 positions out of our budget. And they span from everything from administrative positions to classroom and teacher positions, special education positions, office manager positions, positions up at central office.
So That brings me to a question. I'm just curious. You
Yeah.
kind of teed it up for me.
Yeah,
I've gone through a number of times, I guess, is the simplest way to put it, the different presentations that have been made. I mean, they're all PowerPoint, so you can't
Yeah.
really dig into the data. You just have to accept whatever's there. You can't analyze it per se. But I never found anything that talks about head count. You guys talk about head count? I didn't see it.
Or the number of staff.
The number of staff and the different, not students, staff,
Our annual town report always has all of our.
but your
staffing
budget doesn't
in
have it.
I don't know that we have staffing numbers anywhere in our reports.
Don't you find that something that would be helpful? To know how many staff you have in the budget to say, I mean, when I look, what I'm going on this is, I looked through it again this morning. And the benefits go up $620,000. To me, that usually means, I mean, I know when benefits go up here in Oakham, I think we say we pay what, 22,000 roughly per employee per benefit. That tells me that you're adding staff. Now, maybe you're not, maybe you're just giving more benefits, but I said, and then I started going through all the presentations, looking for a head count. I said, how much has the head count gone up and down over the last few years? And it's not there anywhere.
Well, the reason, I don't know that it would be so helpful to us. So two things, our insurance went up, so if you remember, and this is another
is that
thing
all-
that
is that all it
towns are
is?
faced with too, is that our costs inflationary is ridiculous. Our transportation costs went up 18%.
I saw that.
That's just one example. But I think what we look at, right, we look at our student numbers, and then we really look at staffing based on student need. So that's the best way for me to sort of describe that to you. In departments like Kevin's department and food and nutrition and places like that, we are saying, do we have staffing that supports our ability to get the job done type of thing, right? But in the educational realm, we really have to focus a lot on students, because what's very deceiving about headcount per se is, and maybe this is one way I can sort of highlight this to you, but if we have a family that moves into Oakham, right, and they have 3 students who go to school, it is possible that, sure, one student is in a 3rd grade classroom and they don't require any additional services. However, if there's another student that might have disability or needs or something like that, they may require a one-to-one paraprofessional. They may require a sub-separate program where there's just one teacher to 8 students. So it's really hard to sort of quantify those numbers without really understanding how the positions might be attached and work with students. Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess it's not really what I'm asking. What I'm really asking is benefits increase is almost 1/3 of the school's total increase. You're increasing by $1.5 million and your benefits are increasing by $620,000. If I'm reading the total budget correctly, and if I'm reading what you have in the budget, in the summary. And I was trying to figure out how you got there. And I said, maybe there's a big headcount increase somewhere. Why? It just seemed
Well,
much
what
higher
I
than,
will do for you,
I'd love to know.
because I am not as.
I don't expect you to know,
versed
believe me. I would just
as
love to know.
our-
Cheryl will probably know.
Yeah, she sure will.
It just caught
And
my
there
eye.
is the insurance increase in here, and the other thing I'm just thinking about, to be honest with you, is, well, so. Yeah, the retired teachers' health insurance, was actually reduced, but general business insurance increased. That wouldn't be what you're talking about. We still don't know our workers' compensation, so on and so forth, and the Worcester retirement, regional retirement is still unknown. But I also think that what is factored in there is, remember, when we reduce positions, we also have to pay unemployment. So that could be in that number, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure, so
I don't expect you to have that number.
I
to be
will.
Honest,
I will have her send it to you.
it just really caught my eye when
Yeah,
and when I couldn't find head count, I said, well, I always worried about head count when I worked till I retired.
Yeah.
That was a big number. And I said, why is 1/3 of the total increase coming from benefits? I mean, the town benefits are going up, but they're not 1/3 of our increase.
Can I jump in and ask you a different way?
Yeah.
So I think Alan's a numbers guy, so about how many people are under your purview?
We have almost 500 employees.
So I think he's saying if he knew that 3 years ago you had 490, that last year you had 510, and this coming year you're gonna go for 495. So he's saying that's valuable. I guess another way to look at it would be, do you happen to know what percent of the school's budget goes towards salaries?
Yes, and that's in one of the presentations.
That is-
you
What was,
might
what was that number?
I don't have,
Okay.
the
Do you
total,
have that historically?
Yes, of course.
We do.
those things would
Okay.
be good, yeah.
So we could look at that
We
and
could,
kind of
yeah.
get a feeling for headcount.
I think with
And we
the,
can get you the head count. That's not a problem.
the level of transparency that you offered at the joint meeting of all the towns a month or two ago. I agree, in the private sector, FTEs is a standard. And to have a trend of FTEs, and that seems like a basic trend that should be available.
For the people listening.
Full-time equivalent. But you could say, I mean, it went up because we had to hire all these extra special ed support staff. But to be able to see a trend with the decreasing pupils, but then if you see an increase in staff, I think you can easily explain why. Or if you can't explain why, then I think we have to ask, well, how come the costs are going up if it's not benefits, if it's not inflation?
Again, it's just one of those, Aaron, that was a curiosity to me because it was such a big, I mean, it's the biggest single number of the increase. It's not the biggest single number in the budget, but when you look at increases, it is just about the single biggest category increase.
Cheryl will be disappointed that I can't answer that. for her.
You know what? It gives her something to
I
do.
promise to get you that
I'll have it,
information.
she'll probably send it tomorrow
And
morning,
I
knowing her.
apologize. I just don't want to be incorrect.
No, that's fine. It was just, the head count was my question. I was just curious.
No, it's great. We
That's-
can
that's-
get that for you for sure.
That's really all I had. I don't know if anyone else has anything. So thank you for the information, by the way.
Yeah, well, let me leave you with these. And it's really, what we did was we just sort of summarized everything from our first four. As you said, you can go on and see every PowerPoint that's there,
Yeah.
44
Yeah.
slides.
So you tell Cheryl, tell her I was looking just at the summary.
I will.
Those are where the numbers are.
I absolutely will. So I'm sorry I didn't bring enough for everyone. Aaron probably already has
Is that from
a
the
lot of
presentation?
versions. No, it's a
Okay,
condensed
okay.
version there. But so I guess the place that we are now is we're really waiting to hear about the House and Senate budget, and we're anticipating hopefully that will go up a little bit. And we are not sort of done sharpening our pencils. We know that this needs to be a work in progress, and depending how those numbers flush out, we will continue to do that work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've seen in the news a lot of the bigger school districts announcing a lot of staffing cuts.
Yes.
Are you guys in line with their percentages or?
It's so hard to say because, and there's so many factors. Some schools have really, Newton being one of them, right? They're announcing so many cuts. And part of that was due to their contract negotiations, things like that. So it's hard to say. And then again, some of those towns are getting their full Chapter 70 reimbursement, and we're not receiving that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's difficult to say. We do have a spreadsheet that we have analyzed. And what we do know is that schools in general are in a much tougher position this year than they've ever been before. And that's because of the decrease in ESSER funding, the decrease from governor's budget. So we're all struggling. And it really depends on what some folks have for reserves that they can use to offset their budget, different things like that. So it's pretty individualized, we have. What I can tell you is looking down that spreadsheet, there are far more schools that are cutting positions this year than we've seen in the past, but there are plenty that are not, depending where you are.
I think out of the MMA sent something out yesterday, maybe, that out of all the districts, 19 saw a reduction. And so we're one of the 19.
Yeah.
So there is a meeting I'm going to at the State House next Tuesday, where the Lieutenant Governor is supposed to talk about where we're at. And there's not any expectation that there'll be any movement because the House is taking up their bill now. So it'll be a while before there's any real understanding of what the increases or not decreases. Because I know the governor is putting a hold on administrative hiring. I think it's gonna get a lot worse.
And we advocate to our legislators, the Mars group, the Association of Regional Schools, does a lot of advocacy. And I think at that point, at this point, that's really what we're trying to do. Just like I said, really looking closely at what we have, what we need, and how to figure out best how to support it. We're not just worried about this year, we're worried about next year as well.
So are we, yeah. I mean, like I said, the 3-year trend is close to a 5% increase per year. I think it was 2, 8, and
It's in there.
6, okay.
Yeah.
It's concerning.
No 8, but
7 point something. Last year, wasn't it? 7.7 for us?
6% last year. Oh, for you, I'm sorry. for
Yes.
you
Yeah, I'm talking about
personally,
Oakham.
overall, sorry.
7.7 last year, yeah.
How much of a challenge is the migrant issue?
So we are seeing it. So we definitely are seeing it. Our L population has really increased. And what's really challenging, again, going back to that idea of FTE and rural school districts, is that, we have 15 English learners, but due to the amount of time that they're required to work with an English learner teacher, we actually had to hire 1.5 teachers. And we're still struggling to meet the student needs because of the travel between buildings. So all of the English or multilingual learners are not housed in one building, of course, right? They're spread out across our district. And that is, it just is more challenging for a district like ours than, some of the others to be able to provide those services in an efficient manner.
Is there a community that's announced who has the highest number of migrants?
Hubbardston seems to be seeing the increase.
I wondered if that was part of their
second.
increase. And are they getting reimbursement from the state to cover their extra costs, or is the school district getting any funding?
No, so you have to reach a certain threshold and we're not there yet.
So I can
And
understand
with our decreased
Hubbardston's
enrollment.
concern.
Yes,
They're getting hit, but they weren't
They're getting
necessarily may not have been taxpayers supporting the
They're getting no
additional
help.
costs. Yeah.
well, I always hate to leave on a note like this.
Well, this is good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, we
This is good.
appreciate the time and we're happy to come back. And, Cheryl couldn't be here tonight, so she will be right on your questions. And if you have anything else, just pop them in an email to us and we'll
You
make
know,
sure.
she's periodically sent me some really helpful information.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She's great. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Excuse myself for a few minutes.
Okay.
So the next thing we have on the agenda is to start discussing the fiscal 25 budget. If I could take a couple of minutes and talk about that. I think we all know the revenue numbers, so I don't think I need to run through those, but they're a little bleak compared to what the school is asking for and what the town is asking for. Corey, I know you spent a lot of time building up some new spreadsheets but you finished them up today, so I had time set aside this weekend. So I put together kind of a quick, what I think it was a analysis of where we stand on the budget. What I basically did was take all of the requests as they came in. So whatever anyone asked for, they got. I added a few things in, like at the Board of Selectmen's meeting the other night, Dawn, I think I heard you say something about salary increases in the range of 23,000 to 25,000. 20, okay, it was hard to hear.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
20
I was
it's 27
listening on the
now.
recording, I wasn't live, so I plugged in 25. It's like, yeah, I saw that it was 3%. I was actually hoping it would be something north of that, but I think that's a good starting point. Considering where we're at now, I mean, you probably thought so too, but it's, inflation's running around 3%. And I thought it would be,
We just don't have the revenue.
I know, it's It's just, it is what it is.
But I think it's good that we're all saying that we believe that our employees deserve
So they do.
more. And I think we have to help send that message across the town that we need to get there. But not in 1 year.
And
You haven't done it in 3 years.
We tried to do it
Right.
in 3 years and we weren't able to make it.
We spent
We just couldn't.
a grant to study this, and they came back with anything between, it was like 21% to 54%.
We were below.
Underpaid, the fire chief,
Mhm.
number one, he's the highest,
Mhm.
underpaid. So what we did was, we said, we'll take 3 years to map this out and try to get there. Well, the revenues are not increasing, school costs are going up, so we've got to do the balancing act.
and inflation bit you pretty
And
hard last
inflation-
year and again this
Yeah.
year.
Exactly, you know, with the electricity and everything else. We just can't do it,
Mhm.
you know? Is it making it hard for us to recruit? Absolutely, you know? But what are we supposed to do? Short of going into an override.
Well, I think you're on the right path, looking at something in that 3% range, but I think we've got some real work to do to figure out how to even do that.
Yes.
I mean, we do. So anyway, what I've done is I basically took the entire budget. Simple way is I took out everything that had no change. I left in the work that I was put together, I'll call it just the requested budget changes. Shows all the increases and decreases by department. So it's not the full budget for any one department, it's just their increases and decreases. It makes it a lot easier to look at it. And what I'd like to do is maybe go through that and get input from each group on each item. I think there's some that I've identified that we can probably talk about, and some that I wanted to, and I hate to say I didn't get it completed, but I didn't. Because I know there are some that are basically, the assessor's computer licensing fee. Okay, that's a set fee. We don't get to adjust that. They tell us this is what we're charging you for this year.
Yeah.
Let me start sharing this if I can.
You see this?
I'm not sure how far I can zoom that in where you'll be able to read it. Okay, so it's, yeah, no, I know how to zoom it. I'm just saying that there's a point where it's gonna be
You
too,
can hide your formulas and all of that.
I don't see any up
It's a
there.
drop,
Actually, I can delete a few lines. I'll hide this one.
I think there's a presentation mode as well.
You know where it is.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not an expert.
so if you see,
Oh, you're talking everything
see
at the
these
top.
things,
Yep,
they should allow you to, and then.
yep. I forgot about that. You're right. I'm not sure how much that's gonna change it, but
Full screen mode.
I knew it was there. I'd forgotten about it, Aaron. Thank you. As I said, I haven't had to do this since I retired a few years ago. So can everyone at least sort of read that
Oh,
from
yeah.
here? Okay, so the way this is built is it shows alphabetically by department. The fiscal 25 request, the change, which is column E, and then the total for the department is in F. When you look at increases and decreases, you can see with the assessors, there's a 50,000 or $50 decrease, which is included in there. That was the only decrease they had. When I look at this and I say, okay, the assessors are looking for an increase in office supplies of 1,200. If you remember, I asked Diane about that in your meeting a week ago, and she had a reasonable explanation for that. The only reason I highlight is it's a significant increase from where it was last year. I think it's maybe something we can ask her to take one last look at. Beyond that, I'm not sure what there is to do in the assessor's budget.
That's because they didn't have an office supplies budget and it was all coming out of the town hall.
Right.
And so now hopefully the town hall office supply will off.
But did the town
Reduce.
hall board of selectmen reduce your budget?
I don't think so.
See, those are the
Because-
things I think we can
yeah.
work through tonight.
Yep.
So in the assessor's budget, I really had nothing to say, the education, I believe Diane said in the meeting, but I didn't pick up on it in the recording, that because of the way she is handling the principal assessor with the shared services for this coming fiscal year.
I just want to let you know that the parking lots are getting really slippery, and I know you probably all live close and you're not worried about it, but be careful when you get.
We will, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe she said, but I couldn't find it, that because the way they're addressing the assessor, she didn't need the education budget, we could take it out. Does anyone recall that? She did say that, okay, so. So right now, if you look at this, I should have said this at the beginning, if you look up at the top in column F, the total of $194,932 in requests. As we go through it, that'll make some more sense because it's probably different than the numbers the Board of Selectmen have looked at. So I'll take the 250 and I'm gonna just delete it. Maybe remove. I think this will make sense. We go through it like with the library. I left in the salary increase, but I put in the benefits increase
Mhm.
because we have the budget for it. So you probably didn't have that, Donna, what you've looked at so far. So I think everything that needs to be in here is in here. We'll have to just go through it. So let me go down to the Board of Health. There's a $2,000 increase. Thank you to the Board of Health. One of the few, I think, that and the Finance Committee were the only two that actually went down, and Finance Committee only went down a few hundred.
Did
So
you
that
say
was a nice,
increase?
pardon?
Did you say increase?
Decrease.
Thank you.
I thought I said decrease.
I heard
I mean-
increase.
Did you? Okay, I didn't say it loud enough, sorry. Or maybe I misspoke. Board of Selectmen is the next one. I think there's some questions here that we should at least look at. Web service, IT services. You guys can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but when I go down to the bottom where it's internet access and computer services that were in the town hall. By the way, Dawn, just as you look at it, I put town hall and other all under the Board of Selectmen because they're under the Board of Selectmen's authority instead of having three different budgets.
Right.
It shows all of the increases and decreases.
Nice.
I assume the 13.5 in IT services is offset by the internet and computer services that used to be budgeted in the town hall. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they're highlighted in different colors. I think the administrative assistant wages, I
Sorry,
haven't,
that highlighting in front of you doesn't show up there, just so you're aware.
how come the yellow does it, the gray doesn't? Okay, so the 13.5 and the fourth, these two down here, I have highlighted on my screen. I guess it's too light to show up on the screen. Thanks, Chris. I didn't see that. The administrative wages for the administrative assistant are going up 10%.
Well.
I think that's, remember, Aaron, when you and I talked back a few months ago, you kind of referenced it the other night at your meeting. That I said I hope that the increases weren't going up 10% over the prior year for everybody. That's kind of what prompted it when I.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because when you said you were thinking 10% or,
Well, that was
I
the
was like-
first increase that I had seen
Yeah.
from the Board of
Oh.
Selectmen, and it showed a 10% increase from, for the prior year.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's in contract. I think I've now heard.
There is a
So-
contract that has to be funded.
So it's in contract. You can't do
A
anything
little
about it.
different than what you got. But we increased the hours back to 30 where they should have. It was 25 for this year.
Okay, but the increase is real. It's a $4,500 increase in money going out the
That's
door.
the new number. That's not the number you have. So it's a little bit more.
So it's a little more than what I have.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I'll make sure I get that from you so I get the right
Yeah.
one. Sorry about that.
That's all
I
right.
had some data from the 10,000 I had heard about that. So I've never seen anything. I went out and read the minutes for that executive session. And there's really no information there. I mean, it doesn't say anything, so there's not a number or anything that I could look at. So I based it on what I had heard. I thought in one of the Board of Selectmen's meetings. But anyway, if it's more, a little bit, it is what it is, but it's a concern.
Want to increase
Yeah.
that then on the fly?
Have you got it there,
Yeah, I
46?
and none of these are any of these including the potential 3% increases?
That's what the three.
That's with the three, okay.
So she will not get the 3% on top of
That's
it.
with the three.
That's what. the three.
Okay.
Yeah.
The administrative assistant education line item, I'm wondering if there's anything that you guys can do there to come down on that. I think I heard that a lot of that is gonna be used by the Board of Selectmen for training. It's a $2,500 increase over the prior year.
It's the January thing in Boston.
That was
A
ARPA.
lot of us goes to it. We funded for 3.
That was ARPA though.
Yeah.
But just go to
Oh,
the
did
budget.
we?
This is the FY 20.
Oh, okay.
Aaron,
Oh,
again,
yeah, yeah.
it's just, I know
Yeah.
it's your first year going through
Yeah.
this, but
That could probably go to 800,
If, yeah, one person goes,
one person goes, yeah.
although, yeah,
Aaron, just as a point of clarification, you had asked me earlier when I said I was concerned sometimes some of these opera things just end up then being in the budget thereafter. This was one of them. Was funded the first year out of opera, and then it becomes a budget item.
yeah, and it's not that it was like a chair. Municipal volunteers should be able to get trained and get support in their area of support. It's just been one of those things that we haven't been
I agree. It's
exposed to, and I think at our detriment.
one of the things that I always think of when I think of a budget is you always should start with the must-haves. We have to have these. And then the want to have, and then the nice to haves. And to me, education is very important. It's not a must-have. It's either want to have or nice to have type of item. So again, I'm not asking anyone to change anything tonight. I really think I'm trying to go through this in a timely fashion so you all can think about it, and I'm still kind of waiting for you to say, here's what we think the budget actually should be. This is just and again, the finance committee is seeing this for the first time tonight also. I just tried to come up with something that would let us analyze this in a quick and easy fashion versus thumbing through every single sheet.
Is 1,000 the contracted?
I would say, why don't we just say this is one of those things you're gonna look at?
Yeah, why don't we just look at it first before we cut it?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think this isn't the right meeting to start cutting stuff unless you really know, like you really know on the salary we just talked about, Don.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's put it in, but other things, are these something we can do here? And it needs to be talked about and explored further.
Yeah.
I would say we meet either next week or the week after.
Yeah.
Whenever everyone can get together. I know Mondays don't work good for Corey, but Tuesdays or Wednesdays, I think, work for you most of the time, and Steve's pretty much like me every night, so. The next one I had some questions on was administrative services. I'm not sure what we're doing with that. That was initially put in when we were going through some transition of when Marigold basically was coming in, I believe, was when that first made it into the budget.
Was also put in there years ago for the wage adjustments. It used to be 25,000.
Oh,
So is it, what is it today, Don? I mean, I
Right
honestly
now,
don't
it's
know.
being used for capital. What's the name of it? Strategic capital.
Strategic capital.
Grant
grant.
The grant writers. So should it be re-identified or can it be reduced? I mean, because again, when I see administrative services, I think of something dealing with the administrative assistant.
I think grant writers is a nice new line item.
You could change the names.
I mean,
Yeah.
but and can you reduce the amount, or is they've helped us quite a lot. I mean, it's been very beneficial.
I think we'd be shooting ourselves. There's
they've
so
been very
much more
beneficial.
grants out there that we're not applying for. Now, we might be able to work with CMRPC and pay less. But I definitely think grants is money,
Definitely. We've been
very successful.
depending on it quite a bit this year.
Well, again, just something to think about. Maybe I think it's been good. I mean, from what I've heard you talk about in the meetings I've attended, the grant writer has been very beneficial.
Very excellent.
She has
in
been.
securing some of the grants. So you can't disagree with it. It's just, again, we've got $194,000 and we need to somehow, if you look at the revenue and you think about what I said at the beginning of this year, that it would be really nice if we could come in with the 60-40 split between us and the school, and that our 40% would be about 3%, which would be about $50,000. So we're living within our means. I mean, that's one of the things I think's a goal is you have so much revenue and you spend your revenue, you don't spend your savings. And I know we've been dipping into savings or free cash Having to think of it every year lately.
Every town does.
And every town is, you're right, Don, I know.
Yeah,
I just was hoping we would be there this year. I know we're not going to be, but I think,
Just for transparency's sake, when we look at the budget, we look at it as we don't want to spend any of the town savings. So I hope you don't think we're coming after the Board of Health personally or anything like that.
no,
It's simply, as a person, you don't live beyond your means. We don't want the town to live beyond their means. I hear you, Don, that every town's doing it. When we approach the budget, though, we do not want to spend our savings.
Let me just clarify that. It sounds like every town's doing it. We should jump on bandwagon. That's not exactly what I mean.
okay,
Every town has the same situation with the schools coming in higher than the revenue. There's only one way to make that up. It's going into the reserves or you do an override. And you know how the O word is.
Yeah.
Not gonna
that's
happen.
tough for this town.
You know, it's really hard. So, we have to rely on it. DOR doesn't want us to. That's great in a perfect world. This is not a perfect world. And we're gonna have to dip into it. And I'm concerned with what Alan said, that in 5 years, we'll be into the stabilization.
We will be, actually. I mean, I've actually modeled it out. And we will be.
Yes.
I mean, we've done a good job building that up. It's over $1 million in there, but it's not there to balance the budget.
It won't last long with the school budget.
It
No,
will not.
no. So we've got to be very careful.
Good clarification.
Thank you. Moving on to the Council on Aging. Actually, I'm sorry, I missed the salary. We talked briefly on salary. I plugged in 25,000, Don. You said you had a different number,
He said 27.
27,000?
Did that take into account the admin?
Was the admin part of that 27?
I would assume no, but I don't know. It's not on mine. I mean, in mine, it's separate.
And when I thought it was on the spreadsheet.
That'd be nice savings if it was.
That's the wages by position.
It's on this one.
Take that 9156 and multiply it. It is.
$27,468.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're probably sitting there laughing at how old and slow I am on this computer compared to how you jump around on the meetings.
No, I think, I don't want to speak for Aaron, but I think Aaron pointed out that the
Yeah.
administrative assistant is on the spreadsheet. So can her increase come out of that 27,468?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so.
but that's the savings there.
So we can adjust that and send us some.
Yeah.
Moving,
Do you want to note? We should note.
So it's
that.
not 27, it's minus the 3%.
Minus, yeah.
Good catch, Dave.
I didn't think of that. Really building, zoning, cemetery and CMRP, we went through in quite detail in the meetings. The cemetery, I sat through the meeting on that. I don't think there was any room there to reduce anything right now. I mean, maybe that there's just got to be a cut, but I didn't see anything there worth talking about.
The only thing potentially is mowing or landscaping, potentially.
That's the main reason the cost went up is because.
The cost went up because what happened was one year because of the weather, he ended up getting more than what we budgeted for him. And we were told them we therefore had to get 3 quotes
Mhm.
so that they could give him over 10,000. We went out and got 3 quotes and this was the cheapest quote.
There was some discussion in one of the BOS meetings about the possibility with changes in highway, new superintendent coming in and everything, that you may have the opportunity to have some of that taken over by the highway department. So that may be something that's, I don't think you can change the budget right now because of it, but I think that's still,
They say that every year and it hasn't happened yet. He does a good job. for the highway department to do it, they would be able to do one cemetery a day, a week. It takes a lot of time to do each cemetery. There are 5 of them that have to be done. And that includes weed whacking around all the headstones.
Right, now I've heard you talk about them numerous
And that's the
times,
part
right?
that takes the most time, not going up and down the rows.
Yeah.
That's not so bad, but every headstone does get trimmed.
Yeah. Again, I'm just pointing it out because it's really the only place in the cemetery's budget where there may be some room to adjust something. And yet I'm sitting here saying we got a budget problem. And these aren't easy to go through. I'm just saying if anyone here tonight can identify where you think there may be something we can do, we should explore it.
I think you could probably cut the 13,000 down to closer to 11. I wouldn't go lower than that because if he hits over 10,000 again, I'd be in the same position.
Again, the next one really that I had to talk about was the Council on Aging. The coordinator's wages. I feel I have a little bit of a challenge with this because I participate in some of the Council on Aging activities, and I think the coordinator does a great job. It is a 21% increase.
Yes, it is.
It is a budget that a year ago didn't exist. I mean, it was a new position last year. So it was $10,000 new to the budget last year. Another 2,180 new this year. I don't think I can make a recommendation because I feel it's probably not mine to make. But I think this needs to be looked at pretty seriously and say, if everyone else is getting a 3% increase and you're gonna give the coordinator a 21% increase.
Isn't that hours though? Isn't this an increase in work week hours? I thought it was 2 extra hours a week.
I don't, but can I make a comment on that? In the budget, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how much money you're spending. Doesn't matter, it's a combination of hours times whatever the rate is. And if you budget for it, you're not budgeting for hours and you're not budgeting for a rate, you're budgeting for the combination of the two.
But it's not comparing an employee getting a 3% increase from their previous hourly rate.
Okay, you're correct there, yeah.
So,
You're increasing how much money you're spending on that employee.
right.
And it's a tough call if it's justified this year or not, or do we just say maybe those hours shouldn't be increased this year? I think she does a great job, so it's hard for me to even bring this up, but I look at it, I say that's a noticeable increase compared to what we're doing in other places.
So as Alan has admitted his bias in that, I speak for a second to say, I've also heard that she does an excellent job. And if the increase is due to number of hours and not a wage increase, then again, you get to maybe we can't afford an hours increase this year.
I talked about
Yes,
that. Initially, okay, back in 2022, when this position was proposed, okay, we voted $10,000 for it,
Right, I was there.
okay? And I think from talking with Lucy, I think it was the figure on 2 days a week at 4 hours per day. So
Right.
it would have been 8 hours per week, okay? Times 52 weeks is like 416 hours, okay? And when she was hired at $18 an hour,
Right.
okay? So she never got the $10,000, okay? And then the town voted to move the $300 from the director's position on top of that. She never got any of that either, okay? That went back to the general fund. This woman is working for the same price that a kid gets paid for getting hamburgers and Cokes at McDonald's. And kids that are bagging groceries in a grocery store and stocking shelves are making more money than she is. So
Again, I agree with you.
if you
Paul.
give her a 3% increase, she's gonna get 54 cents more per hour. That's all she's gonna get. So, somebody's gotta be fair about what this woman, she's already proven herself. She's gone through a year and proven herself of what she does. So somebody
Paul, I-
needs to
I
step
agree.
up to the plate.
I
and
agree with
decide.
everything you're saying. The challenge I see is I also know there are some excellent part-time police officers that also get wages in their hourly wages in that range. And they do great jobs for the town. And
And they also
And they're not-
get to go on to a detail from time to time and.
again, there's all kinds of stuff around
$42
it.
an hour or $55 an hour. So I mean, they do have a chance to bump up, but this woman has no chance.
Again, it's just, somebody has to prioritize it. And is this where the Board of Selectmen wants to spend salary income? That's the question that has to be answered.
I do think there's a disparity in the rate when the Board of Health clerk and the Board of Assessors clerk were making more than a coordinator who is responsible for planning activities and rolling them out. So if they're only making $18 an hour and the clerks are making 18.50 something, or
You are exactly correct, Aaron, but the Board of Selectmen made that decision.
right,
The Board of Selectmen approved that decision. That's what you guys went with when you, again, you weren't on the Board of Selectmen at that time, I understand that. But that's what was agreed to when the position was created by the Board of Selectmen. And the position was accepted at that rate.
yeah.
So I agree with Paul,
Well,
that's why I tried to excuse myself from having anything much to say about this. 'Cause
if you go back to the original desire, okay, of the 8 hours and the $10,000. But 416 hours, that would translate to roughly $24 per hour. That was what was originally proposed. And she's not getting anywhere near that, and she's not asking for anywhere near that.
It's not 18.50, it's 18, they make 18.13, I think.
13. I'm gonna just note that again, this is for the Board of Selectmen, Don, it's further discussion. I mean, I think, we need a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen before we take a position. I would probably recuse myself from voting on it if it gets to that point.
I think the thing we have to remember as far as the recruitment and retention, if we lose any position, we would never hire anybody today
At that rate.
at any of these rates. And so what do we do then? It ends up actually costing us more money in the long run,
And the question is, where does the money come from?
right?
That's the question. Where does it come from? Anyway, I think that's all we can say there. There's two other changes
just wanna
here.
make sure-
that,
Can I say,
yeah, go ahead, Kerry.
I think I just want to make sure I was capturing what Paul said. Paul, you're saying she's worth more than what she's getting paid, is
Oh,
what I heard.
absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, but I think I
I
said
mean,
that
there's a
when I
lot of
started.
people in town that goes to that, all right? I mean, look at the problem you had, trying to get a clerk for the Board of Health.
Look at the issue with the assessor. I mean, that's part of the reason she said she left was, I think she was making, I think I heard $35 in her other role as an assessor. And we weren't paying her that.
No.
The only other two things on the Council on Aging that I just wanted to point out, and I don't think these fall into that category, even though they're new. The software yearly charge and professional memberships are both items that are new to the budget this year. They're both items that prior groups at the Council on Aging paid out of grant money.
Right,
They never budgeted for it.
right.
So, because you knew the grant money was there, there's concern that
Right.
may not go forward that way. So the Council on Aging wants to budget for it. To me, that's just good budgeting. I don't know how else to say it. So I didn't see any way to change that.
It worked into their budget this year for the grant until the cost for the exercise classes went up, which were not budgeted in at the beginning of the fiscal year. They came halfway through the fiscal year and kind of threw off the budgeting that we had done for that grant. And the 1,200 for the software was in the budget at all times. That has never changed. That has always been in the budget. So it was
Okay, that
worked
is,
into the budget for this year as well. That has never changed.
What was it under? Do we
it
know?
wasn't listed as software changes then, because it wasn't in the budget last year.
No, it wasn't in the budget last year. It came out of the grant.
That's okay.
That's the
But you're
My-
always- Okay,
That's
okay, I
the My
understand.
Senior
Yeah.
Center that takes
Yeah.
the attendance of
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah,
that
that's what
comes.
I understand, Lucy.
Yeah.
I understood that's where it was. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We just said it a different way.
Yep.
So,
And the other thing that's happened that has affected their grant money this year is that they have allowed the podiatrist. We had settled that she was doing so many people per day up until 12:30 in the afternoon, so she wouldn't get out to 1. They're bringing in more people. The town does subsidize that cost for the people to have their feet examined and checked on. And so now that they've added 4 people, 5 people more a day each day that she comes, that's pulling more money out of the grant money that was not figured in when the original budget was done for this year.
On a positive side to that, I believe as they go along and if they don't utilize all the grant money, that they will be utilizing it towards, some of these expenses. So hopefully they'll be able to turn some money back.
yeah, no, that's always the hope. I agree.
But I mean, these are just their basic operational costs, which are forecastable.
Next item, again, that Timmy had, I think, and I just wanted you guys to confirm this for me, Don, the dispatching assessment is going up by $6,228. That's a contract that's set in stone. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understood that one correctly.
With all the inflation possible, I think that's pretty nice of them to only,
It's not bad.
Next one I had to take a look at was training wages for the fire department. I have an opinion on this. I think that both the fire department and the police are asking for something similar to what the Council on Aging is asking for, which is an hours increase, not so much a wage or rate increase. However, I've spent a lot of time on it. I mean, I got some spreadsheets we can put up here, but it just take more time than I think we need to spend on it tonight. The fire department's had a number of wins over the last few years. If you look at where we were when Tim got here, he's done a fantastic job recruiting. I think there were 4 or 5 volunteer firemen. I think we're up to around 20 now. And he would like to increase that to 25. That's what the 12,000 is for. I have the same view when we get to the police, but I think this may be the year after the fire department having some fairly significant growth in that area over the last few years, combined with the purchase of a close to $1 million piece of equipment for the fire department. That they've done a great job. We've spent some money there. I think this may be a year where we say you may have to stay with the current staffing you have and not add the 20 or, the other 5 people to get to 25. Again, that's just my opinion. I leave that for you guys to talk about. Corey, I don't know if you have a different view on that.
I think we have to see what the gap is. I would prioritize training for police and fire if we have the available funds.
Yeah, this is actually adding manpower. This is training 5 new staff. And the question is, can we go this year without 5 new staff members?
I think it's easy to say that until your house is on fire.
I agree, but I'm just saying at some point, something, so far we've increased by a couple $1,000s from where we started tonight. Again, there's really nothing else once you take out, and actually I'll give Tim high marks, because if you take out the training wages, his budget is less than level funded. It's negative. I mean, he basically balanced everything else out. And he actually, if you, again, take the training wages out, there's about a $4,000 give back to the town. So he did a great job budgeting. I just think this may not be the right year to increase in that area.
and the unfortunate thing is we can't even see all of the money that, police and fire are bringing in grants.
Oh, it's tons.
Because in addition to all of that, they're not asking the taxpayers to fund things that we really should be funding, like equipment.
Then if we didn't have the grants, we probably would have to be funding because it would be a priority over some other things. I agree.
Over 3 years that he's been here, he's brought in well over 100,000 in grants for the
Phenomenal.
fire department, which is excellent.
That's phenomenal, yeah.
And the police chief has brought in like 70,000.
We don't see that unless we happen to be in a BOS meeting and they tell us about it.
Okay.
He has been doing quarterly reports.
Yep.
I think that would be good to make sure they're shared because
Yeah, we don't see those. That would be nice.
I think it's on the website,
It's on the
It's on the
website.
website. Okay, I didn't know they.
the front page, yeah.
Yeah, well, if it's on the fire department website, I can go find it, but I just didn't know he had that information out.
Yeah, it's actually on the front page of of our town website.
Is it okay?
On the lower right-hand corner, there's a little.
I had noticed it.
You look at that website too much, do you?
Oh, God. Not for much longer.
The next question I had is in the highway area. It's signs and streetlights. We've had some significant increases there. I know Kevin felt it could be decreased a little bit. He did decrease it from his original budget submission. I don't recall exactly what that was, but it still was a $5,500 increase. And I think that's another area, I think the Board of Selectmen that I would suggest you look at, and maybe there's a couple $1,000s, we could take that down.
That was all the cost of steel.
That's what he said. Yeah, I recall that.
That was it, was the materials were
Right, but again, you're
just
gonna have a new
high.
highway superintendent,
Well, that's. yeah.
and some of these things, just please keep in mind as we go through this. We know there will be, well, if history proves out, there will be a special town meeting in the late fall, early winter.
Right.
And some of these issues, if you say we're gonna take signs and streetlights down by $2,000. If you get to the special town meeting and you've got an issue, we have the opportunity to correct and cure that issue. So I think we need to start trying to be conservative on some of this. Next one up for me, and again, they're all alphabetical, was the library. I don't know where everyone stands on this. I sat through the meetings. I know that Sam retired, submitted her resignation. Now you're retired, good for you. If you retired your age, God bless you. Submitted her resignation, but has been doing all the work still, covering the library for the town. I think, Sam, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think I've got the right number in here of a $9,000 increase is what we're recommending, and that's an hours increase primarily. The
Hours only. yeah,
hours to 25 hours.
dollar amount increase, yeah.
The one thing I put in here and I recognize and ask everyone to recognize because you're going to that many hours, there's the potential for benefits having to be paid. So I plugged it in here just as a plug-in. I know it goes down into the treasurer's budget when we actually budget, but I think it's important to recognize that the two go together. So you're really looking at about a $31,000 increase in the library area. And I recognize also, it's been said more than once that you may very well get a director that doesn't need benefits, but you have to budget for those benefits because you don't know that until you hire that person. So we can't not budget for the benefits if we budget for the wages. So I put it in, I believe it should be there. I think the Board of Selectmen still has some evaluation you're doing on that. I haven't heard anything anyway as to where you stand.
I think we're all in favor of the 25-hour
Yeah.
increase.
So I'm just leaving it there for now.
Is it possible to look at that 3%? It doesn't save a whole lot, but potentially it would be a new employee starting.
That would be another thing you deduct.
So you
Yeah.
deduct the 3%, yeah, so you would deduct the 40,000 minus 3%,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
$1,200 roughly.
Can we do a tangent of a quick update on the library well while we have Sam here?
Sure. Sam, did you hear that?
Notes.
Thank you.
I just got a call from the driller. They've gone down. I will say that the person doing the work said it's one of the toughest projects he's ever taken on. He's not a young guy. They've gone down 400 feet and are still only getting the same amount that they were at 130.
Oh,
So they would like to go down another 100 feet. I just asked how often are they testing only at 100 feet? Or are they testing every 25 feet? Just to kind of know. And we're really hoping that 500 feet is, that's going to be the end of it. If not, the option is the hydrofrac down there. We won't know tomorrow because of the weather, most likely. Maybe it might even have to wait until Monday, depending on the weather. But they're doing what they can.
Hydrofracking is not unusual.
Yeah.
And we don't have any other options. on that parcel.
It is a far cheaper.
We can't come over here, we can't go across the street.
It's a far cheaper option than anything
Yeah.
else we were exploring, even if they do have to do the hydrofracking. So
I have professional experience with it and it has proven to be beneficial.
The hydrofracking.
Yes.
I mean, my first house in Oakham was hydrofracked.
Yeah, my neighbor's house had to be also.
his recommendation was not to hydrofrack at 400 feet because you often, it's just
You'll get it.
a little bit,
Mhm.
deeper. So that's what we decided to do, go down an extra 100 feet. And then make the decision to hydrofrack if at 500 feet, there's still.
What is the cost difference to go down?
So the contract that we had with them was, I believe it was 11,200, and that was the cost to grind out the Jaswell seal, which was stuck in there. Which they did, deepen by 100 feet and to replace the Jaswell seal at the end of the process of Jaswell seal 60 feet. So it was $20 per foot for every foot beyond an extra 100 down. So I think, and I think the original well was about 130 feet deep.
122.
122, so Susan. So they're about an extra 230 feet down. Is that right? 100 feet, 100 feet? No, they're about an extra, 170 feet down. So at $20 a foot, that's about 3,400. So to go an extra 100 feet would be a total above the contract price of 5,400. Hydrofracking is 4,200, just the standard price on that. And they have the machinery, that same company has all the machinery to do that. So I believe it was 11,200 for the contract price. It looks like definitely adding 5,400 on top of that. And then if hydrofracking is necessary, that's 4,200. And I don't know how much you had set aside from ARPA funds for this project.
6.
They were at-
I was thinking 20 all along, so
We set aside 6 because we didn't know.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
placeholder,
Yeah.
but we can certainly,
Okay,
And you still have a significant amount of opera, if I recall from the other night, 50-some thousand.
150.
150, okay. That's what happens when you listen on a recording. I thought I heard 50.
No, we didn't spend all
I was like, where'd they go?
You sure?
that.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, we need to have water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is cheaper than any of the other alternatives.
Oh, the other- yeah, much more.
Well,
expensive.
maybe they get oil and have revenue.
Well, that's what I asked, if we get oil.
I can help you with that.
Still need water.
Yeah. And the water runoff is nicely, there's a barrier. It's only going down the library property.
yeah, it looks good to me, yeah. And it's testing out, when we did the groundwork at the playground, they did it in a way to create drainage, so it's a good test for that right now.
Concern,
And that's,
neighbor.
Could be, potentially.
Thank you for the update.
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Sam. Back to the budget. I think we're done with library. Parks and Rec. They are asking for a $10,000 increase over the current budget. Again, I'm just gonna say the same thing I probably already said more than once. This may not be the year that they get that kind of increase. I could see it being no increase personally, because they got the first $5,000 in the budget for the first time last year.
Right.
So we created a new line item of $5,000 and they've been encouraged, and I think there's so much they can do for this town. But again, I put this in that category of we do not have to have this. This is nice to have. It's not a must to have. It's not like safety. It's not like the highway department. I think there's some room to reduce that. I don't know what the number is yet. I think it should be discussed. I have some numbers in mind where I would put it.
I think it's
Landscape.
5,000 for their activities. And I think the other 5,000 was because work was added to
Landscaping.
their.
I agree,
plate.
but I'm just saying that this is an area where I think,
And I think I saw somebody down there. They might have been giving him an estimate on what the landscaping work would be,
5,000, not knowing what the estimates were gonna be,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
but to put something
Mhm.
in the budget.
But that might be one where the highway,
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, yeah.
that's an easier than around gravestones.
The gravestones,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, so.
For me, it's one of those areas that we really need to look at because that's a significant increase.
I do think that level funding it potentially has, we may not have a committee. Because they took on that extra responsibility. And it was not a unanimous vote. It was, I think, a close vote. And there's, I think, still some people who are not happy that they're being asked as 100% volunteer to now be responsible for landscaping and all that. So maybe if the highway took the landscaping, at least that's less of responsibility. And then it's just helping to provide oversight of the use of these public spaces and not managing the physical arrangements.
And I think, Aaron, there was what I thought was a very good discussion about how many parks and recs in some communities, and I think Rutland was referenced specifically, are self-funding,
Mhm.
that they run events, they run fundraisers, and they fund themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's hopefully something that Parks and Rec that takes time to build up. That doesn't happen in year one, but that they can start building something, Don, where they're actually raising some money that
Yep.
goes
Didn't
back
they
into
join
some of
with you
these.
on the ball roll?
We didn't share profits with each other. They got the proceeds from the ticket sales from Oktoberfest and maybe there were food and drink sales, although I can't remember if they profited off of that in any way. And the ball roll was run entirely by the library, so the proceeds for that.
Okay, I thought one year that you might have split
I
it.
think back along years ago, it was a joint effort because the
Right.
event was run more together, but then it split at some point in
Okay.
time. Yeah, because the responsibilities, it's a lot to manage.
Right.
The whole, so it just kind of. I don't know the history of that.
Okay,
I do think that Rutland has certain amount of population that help them to probably fund
Of course, Aaron.
their,
Yeah, that's-
their staff that actually, they don't have volunteers running any of their activities. They have employees that run it, but they have however many people that live in Rutland. We certainly would
Yeah,
have to
I'm just saying
supplement
that
it.
that's something that maybe there's some opportunity as the Parks and Rec has more members and they're getting more active. It sounds from what's been said in the meetings that there may be some opportunities for
Yeah.
some fundraising beyond what we currently do. Again, I'm just looking for how do
Yeah.
we continue to have Parks and Rec grow without the budget growing like this every year?
Cut the five,
I would be fine with that.
cut that five.
I would-
Just to ask,
Yep.
Cut the
I don't know
Yes, sir.
if you want to get through everything today, but we are hitting 33 degrees.
Actually, I bet I can get through this in about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
If just to, because I really, what I wanted to do was let you guys know, this is what I've identified. Maybe you've gone through it and you have a different list, but I want to share with the Board of Selectmen what we've identified that is creating the budget problem we have from the town's perspective. Forget the school.
From what I've done, so,
So we had said we could go down to 5 right away
yeah, we could do that.
on that.
But again, I would really like to have you guys come back and, we have a chance to talk, probably your next meeting on Monday and just say, is this really what you want to do? And I'll probably be there, but I think things like this, it's good to think them through and not just say, hey, we don't have to decide this tonight. We've got a couple of weeks to button this down.
Yeah.
Next one I have is the police part-time salaries. Again, Chief presented 2 different scenarios. I put the lesser of the 2 increases in my spreadsheet, totally discounting the most expensive one immediately. His request basically was all hours increase, let's see. Try to read through it. Yeah, I don't see any increase in actual wages. It was all hours, manpower, and basically providing coverage. That's too small to read, I apologize, but it was providing coverage either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or basically going to 24/7 was the more expensive one. So I plugged in the 30, going to the, was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, okay. Figured you would know. I plugged that in. And same as I said with the fire department, I think this is one of those things, the police, we've gone from no full-time officers to a full-time officer and a full-time chief in the last 2 years. Aaron, we talked a little bit earlier about the difference between wages and hours changing and everything. When I went through it, one of the things I did is I just looked at total dollars budgeted. And, you know, when you go to that type of review, instead of saying what employee got what or how much was it, what you see is, you know, 20, this is hard to read and that's right in front of it, but
This is great. I like this.
what you're seeing is in 2021, total expense by the town excluding stipends, so wages and salaries went up only not even a full percentage point. 2022, what we spent on wages and salaries went up 15.5%. 2023, it went up 4.2%. In 2024, it went up 5.91%. So that's, I'll send this out, Aaron, when I'm done. I just wanted to go through it first so people weren't spending all their time looking at it when I was trying to talk.
Mhm.
I've been to meetings like that.
Yeah.
So the only point I'm making is, you know, we have increased the amount of money significantly that we spend on compensation. It hasn't been enough to address every position in the town at this point in time. And each year when you look at it, again, the police chief and then the officer first, and then the chief, both going full-time, were both significant parts of the town's total compensation
Mhm.
spend
Mhm.
those years. And when you have a 15% increase in total compensation, there were 2 or 3 things that accounted for that. But we're spending the money. It's just not enough to give everyone that 4% and 5% and 6% increases that I know people would like to see.
And I personally think that's the priority, is getting our employees to a livable wage before we add an extra shift that we haven't had. If we had to pick between the two. Oh, and then looking at the data that we've received thus far from Rutland, in my opinion, there's no case, an average of, I think, 1 point something a week of a call after 11 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
For $50,000 that we could not
Justify
use
it, yeah.
or use somewhere else. That wouldn't be my priority.
But that's why I'm saying, I think this is a year, and we say to the police, just like I said with the fire department, that this is a year, it may be, you know, you've had a couple of wins the last few years. We have to focus priorities on someone else, somewhere else. And,
And could that be a question that goes before town meeting?
I was just gonna say, we could make that an article at some point in
Yep.
time, and have the people vote on it.
They're voting on that shift, basically.
And understand if you're voting on it,
it's going into the budget.
Yep.
going into the budget.
Yep. I would rather that.
You know,
By the way, a comment, if I could make just a comment here, one of the things I would recommend we do is with the library change. It seems like everyone's in support of that, just as we did with the full-time officer coming on and with the chief coming on, that does become an article that the town votes on to make sure the town supports that effort. And it's not just the Board of Selectmen that's putting it into the budget. I mean, I think that's fair. We've done it the last couple of times when we've had that kind of change.
For the recording clarity, what's the change for the library you're speaking of?
Would be the increase of $9,009 and the benefit cost of $22,500 for going to 25 hours per week versus the current 19 and a half, I believe it's at. Is that correct, Sam?
Thank you.
And it's compensated. We're going to compensate the 25.5 hours,
Yes.
because I think there have been volunteer hours
They have
Um,
probably.
probably creating that.
But again, I just think I should have mentioned it when we were on the library. I think that should be an article. Ever since I've been on the finance committee, anything of that nature has been an article that the town votes to, we budget to do it, but if the town votes against it, then we take it out of the budget, basically. Just a couple more and I'm done with this, and I think we can probably have a quick
Yeah, it
discussion.
is a bit slippery out there. just-
Yep.
I mean, I crossed the road just 20 minutes.
Town clerk salary, we have Edna recommending an increase. I know she's doing a volunteer, well, she's not volunteering, she's being paid, but she's temporary. And I just don't know what the salary should be there, but I think, you know, maybe there's a few $1,000s. You can say we can try going down a little lower than what she recommended. I'm not sure how you come up with 5,751 is the number. Maybe it's 4,000. I don't know, but I think it needs to be looked at.
And I think there we have to look at comparable
It's gonna
communities.
be looked at. I mean, again, it's,
Yeah,
what I tried to focus on, Aaron, were those things that were thousands of dollars in increases, not hundreds. And you gotta pick the fruit that's causing the problem. You can't, you can nickel and dime yourself, say, we're gonna cut $25 here and $50 there. You're never gonna get where we need to get to. I had the same comment on the treasurer collector salary. It's, again, the budget that they presented recommended an increase of $2,228. I think the Board of Selectmen needs to take a look at that and see if that's the right number there, if it should be the 3% that you're doing with other employees and other departments. Everything else in the treasurer collector, I went through with Wendy, and most all of it is, things like Worcester City Retirement, group insurance, payroll services. That is the change to, I guess I would think of it as an automated payroll system that we're going to.
oh yeah, and that's gonna be significantly less than 4,000. It's gonna be probably about 1,000.
So I'll let you guys come back
Yeah.
with a number on that.
That's helpful.
Again, these were the budgets that were submitted back in January, so I tried to present what each department said they felt they needed, and then we can adjust from there.
Yeah, we took all employees and came up with the 4,000, but we're only looking at like 22.
Okay. So anyway, where we're at $196,000, 662 over budget right now.
And 50,000 of that was the,
I played with this and
Police.
started taking stuff out, and we can get it down to around 120 or so fairly easily, I think. Then it becomes harder. I also want to point out, if you look at the bottom and can't see it, I guess. But we do have to remember that we need to include in the budget, thank you. The new override for the fire truck. We will again have the Quabbin Regional Roof as a debt exclusion. We'll have the interest, and then we should have the principal payment built into the budget, and then it'll offset in the revenue further down the line, below the line. So we just need to remember to budget for both parts of that. And I know, Don, I think you spoke to possibly doing a 10%, $85,000 principal payment also. And I spoke with Wendy, and she said she believes, I think she was gonna look at it, that we would collect enough to fund that plus the interest in fiscal year 2025.
Yeah. Meeting with her and make her all that.
So, that's all I had on that from the finance committee. And again, I'm speaking as the chairman of the finance committee, I guess, but not with the finance committee having voted on any of this or anything. Cory had not even seen it yet. Most of this I worked on again, and then for an hour or so this morning, trying to have something to talk through tonight. I would suggest we both together, Don, and over the next, again, I'm schedule something next Wednesday. I don't know what the Board of Selectmen schedule looks like. I know what mine looks like. I could be there. Cory, I don't know if you could make a meeting next week if we needed to.
Yes. Not Monday or
Wednesday night.
I can
Tuesday.
do Wednesday.
Wednesday night. So my recommendation would be that we everyone just take a look at this. I will email all this out tomorrow morning
Okay, that would
so
be
that you
great.
have it.
Yeah, I'd like a,
Yeah, no, I'll get you a
Copy
copy of it. And I can put it on the SharePoint site, Aaron, if you like, but I've noticed that it doesn't seem like anyone's going to the finance committee SharePoint site but me.
Yeah, well, I went today and I just noticed that there wasn't any, because we've got
You said
the
you were looking for
municipal
something.
budget one, we've got the finance one, so if we're not using the municipal budget, and you're putting it in finance, then I'll look at finance.
Okay, I can get it in there. The final item I had on the finance committee agenda, and Cory, this is for you, and I'll talk with Steve when we get a chance. The Board of Selectmen asked about the possibility of the finance committee making a presentation to the town prior to the annual town meeting on the budget. I voiced the opinion, I thought it was a good idea, but I wanted to have you and Steve give your thoughts on that also. I've actually,
At the annual town meeting or? is
no,
it a special
like
meeting?
probably 3 weeks before the annual town meeting, so there's a preview of what the budget is for everyone besides what we mail out. It's gonna be tight time-wise, but I said I thought we could probably do something if we get some decisions made here quickly. I don't know how you would feel about that. I mean, I actually, I went a little further. I built a presentation that would be about 18 to 20 slides. Probably take a half an hour to go through them all. Something to think about. I mean, it's the first time you're hearing this, I know, because you weren't at the meeting last week, but
Happy to discuss it if you think there's value. The annual town meeting, we get no more than 200 people. The people who watch our videos average around 20, and several of those clicks are Sam and me, apparently. So I don't know.
And me.
And you. So in between the, in between the dozen to 2 dozen people who watch what happens here every couple of weeks versus the annual town meeting, I'm not sure how many people would attend an in-person meeting on that, but happy to.
Paul,
talk
didn't
about it.
you have one,
We did one year,
and how many people showed up?
5.
5.
But what was interesting is the special town meeting, we had over 150 watch that.
Wow.
So I wouldn't even count on people coming. I would do it more as a webinar. And it's information out there for people to watch.
Again, I'm not opposed
do
to
it right
doing
from
it.
there.
I think we need the timeline to get it done. Again, I said, okay, how long is this gonna take? And I think that if I were making it, I could make it in 20 to 30 minutes. It would really just hit the highlights of the revenue as a starting point. And again, I was gonna kind of run through it quick, but I think in the interest of the weather, I'll save that for another day. Maybe next Wednesday, I'll bring it in and we can go through that.
Just while he's here, Paul, the 5 people that attended, did you think there was value in that to them? What was your take?
I mean, the 5 that showed up were really interested. There was more than 5 people there, but it was usually like department heads and,
Yeah,
employees.
And why didn't you do it again? Why didn't you do it again? Why did you just do it the one time?
Well, basically because of the budget formulation was getting so tight. And, in fact, a couple of times the town council was even changing the motions 5 minutes before the meeting was supposed to start. I mean, it was really,
I remember, yeah,
That's
again, timing
consideration.
is an issue and then
it is.
participation. Now, when you didn't have it available online or as a YouTube, participation was 5 people. Aaron, you make a good point that with it being streamed or Zoom and then available on YouTube, you may get 100 people to go out and look at it
And my hope
on their own
is
schedule.
that it's an opportunity to kind of let people know what the future is now. This is the work that went into it this year and look how painful it was. And we're having issues with recruitment, retention. I think giving people information now might help us for next year. I attended the 2.5 override meeting at the school the year that was done. And I felt like that education session made a difference in people supporting it. And so I think we're getting in that area in the future.
Again, I think that we could probably the reason I brought you is I think you could probably help me put it together and make it flow the way it should.
And I think we plan on having a piece about the rationale behind the town clerk and then the
The
building,
town hall.
yeah, the town hall. So it'd be an hour probably.
I think if you go beyond that, you
Yeah.
start losing people,
Yeah.
so. Other than that, for the finance committee, Corey, if I could just ask, our last meeting was 3/20/24. I would ask if you reviewed the minutes. I know you did, so I would make a motion that we approve the minutes from 3/20/24, so we can get them posted.
Do we need to wait for Steve's
No, we just need 2 of us.
Okay. motion?
All in favor? Aye, okay. I'll get that out on this tomorrow. And with that, I will adjourn the finance committee at 7:48 PM. Why do we adjourn?
Do we have?
I do not.
Nope.
Thanks for coming by, guys. Appreciate it.
Get home safe.
Drive careful, yeah.
Second.
I second it.
Oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you scan and send your copy of this?
Yeah,